is Frank Davis, and welcome back to another episode of Getting Revolutionary. Boy, do we have a show for you today. Joining me are special guests Lewis Page and Alistair Oxford. Please tell us. Alistair. Lewis, please tell us a little about yourselves before we get started.
Hello, I'm from New Orleans, and I love cities that are higher than sea level. And I only majored in French studies because I love beignets and croissants.
Great. And Alistair?
How quaint. I'm originally from Beverly Hills, but I often spent summers at our vacation homes in London and Paris. In fact, sometimes I tell people that
We don't particularly care about where you spent your summers. What did you study in college?
how rude. Well, of course, I attended Stanford, where I majored in history with a concentration in the Middle East. I graduated at the top of my...
Moving on, folks. Today we'll be discussing the French and Palestinian revolutions and investigating similarities between the two. Don't be surprised if, like every time before, they share things in common. The first question will be for you, Alistair. What can you tell us about the wrongful and meaningless imprisonment and torture of citizens during the first Intifada?
Well, Frank, to say it was rampant would be a gross understatement. The people of Palestine, even the children, were treated with the utmost cruelty by the Israeli Defense Force, who were occupying the land at the time. Much like my decrepit old grandmother, the old bat would refuse to cut the crust from my sandwiches.
Alistair, I'll have to ask you to stay on topic here.
Right. My sincerest apologies. As I was saying, the cruelty was extreme to say the least. Citizens were imprisoned and sometimes killed by the masses for no reason other than being Palestinian. In fact, I can quote Joe Sacco in saying, the sort of thing that raises my eyebrow is a male in his mid-20s who hasn't been arrested. To make matters worse, the conditions of these prisons were deplorable. The prisoners were often beaten and tortured within inches of their lives, sometimes for merely bumping into an IDF officer.
That's truly something to make you think. How could...
And if physical torture wasn't enough, the soldiers were known to cut down olive trees, otherwise known as Olea Europa, in the region. You simple folk may be thinking, they're just trees. But for many Palestinians, olive trees often have familial sentiments, as they take nearly 80 years to consistently yield olives, making them somewhat of a family heirloom. These trees literally live through generations. They also serve as a source of income for many Palestinians.
Thank you very much, Alistair. And what about you, Lewis? Give us the crumbs on the French Revolution.
Well, I don't know much about olive trees, but the chaos and torture during the French Revolution was like a lot. And there were about 300,000 people arrested during this time, and about 17,000 were killed by the guillotine. That means getting their head chopped off. These machines eventually became a symbol of fear during the Reign of Terror.
Well, I'll have you note that in the prisons of Palestine, the IDF guards, often use tear gas to restrain the prisoners and rarely regard them as human.
Alistair, this is hardly a competition. You need to relax. We'll be moving on to the question 2 now. Lewis, what, in your opinion, was the drive behind the French Revolution? Was it a man and his will, or was it the masses of France that strove for change?
The masses?
Are you asking me? You're the expert.
Oh, of course. The masses. Well, it began with the lower class who felt that King Louis the 12th. Who knows? There was like 16 of them. Anyway, they thought the king was doing a bad job because he was leading France to bankruptcy. And the queen told them to like eat cake or something if they didn't have bread. I don't get that part anyway, but I love cake. Anyway, there were mostly just protests until the king and his wife got their heads chopped off. I mean, they were executed by the guillotine. Then the period of chaos began, and it wasn't resolved until that little guy, Napoleon Dynamite, took control.
Napoleon Bonaparte, you imbecile.
What a compliment.
All right. What about you, Alistair? Who led the revolution in Palestine?
Unfortunately, I have to go along with this bumbling idiot, how he so eloquently stated. The resistance to Israeli occupation of Palestine was largely due to the masses. There were unified results both in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. With so much violence and loss of life, the Palestinians and Israelites eventually reached an armistice with the Oslo Accords. These accords stated that there would be recognition between the two peoples and that Israel would gradually withdraw from the Gaza Strip.
Wow. As you can see, revolutions start right here with the people. What great insight from the two of you. We'll be right back, folks.
Are you tired of the same social, religious, or political injustices and just don't have time to research how to start a revolution? No need to fear. The Revolution Starter Pack is here. This product contains every key element to boost people to take action for your cause. If you do the easy to follow instructions inside, you are guaranteed to see results in just 2 weeks. This product can be yours today for the small price of $19.99 plus shipping and handling. But wait, there's more. Call now and you will receive a free copy from these 3 titles: Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton soundtrack, C.L.R. James's The Black Jacobins, or Joe Sacco's Palestine. Call now to 1-800-GOT-REVO or order online at RevoStarter.com. That's 1-800-GOT-REVO or RevoStarter.com. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Call now and start a revolution today.
And we're back, folks. Time for our third and final question of the day. Alistair, we'll start with you. What is the state of Palestine now after the first Intifada?
To be frank, get it? I made a joke.
Very clever. Can we move on?
You dull creatures can't even appreciate comedy. No matter. As I was saying, the state of contemporary Palestine is dismal, though not nearly as bad as the first Intifada. Because the Oslo Accords were not a formal and binding agreement of peace, the tensions and even violence between Palestine and Israel has been active since. There was even a second Intifada. But despite international efforts to transcribe peace between the two states, they remain in conflict. In fact, one of the few positive developments since the first Intifada was that in 2012, the United Nations upgraded Palestine to the status of non-member observer state.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Lewis, what was the state of post-revolutionary France? Any better than Palestine?
Well, let me think on that for a second. Well, like I said earlier, Bonaparte, took power and was basically a king. So the masses that pushed for the revolution did not achieve their goal to set up a new government without a king. And while that little guy was in charge, France started trying to conquer Europe, and they would have too. But something about the Russians and it being cold, I don't really remember, but Napoleon didn't conquer Europe. And it was eventually exiled from France. After this, there was a huge depression. Not sure why everyone was sad though.
I think the depression you're referring to is one of the economic sense.
Yeah, same thing. Anyway, everyone was sad and things didn't get better in France for a long time.
Are you finally done?
And that's all the time that we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much, Alistair and Lewis, for your time and joining me on Getting Revolutionary.
Of course.
Thank you.